Senator from Missouri.
Mr. President, I rise today to talk about a disappointing milestone that we passed yesterday. Yesterday was the 1,400th day since the Senate passed a federal budget. 1,400 days, so I guess today is the first day moving toward 1,500 days, but yesterday was the 1,400th day. It's been said, Mr. President, and I know I've said it on this floor, that failing to plan is planning to fail. If you don't have any idea where you're going, you're not likely to get where you'd like to be. When it comes to our budgetary future, the strategy of the majority has been just not to deal with it. Last summer, the Vice President, Joe Biden, challenged that said, "Show me your budget and I'll tell you what you value." Now, why the Vice President would have said that, I really don't know. A president's budget that's arrived late and been dead on arrival, apparently every time it's arrived in the last 4 years, and a Senate majority of the Vice President's party that hasn't passed a budget. Why the Vice President would have said, "Show me your budget and I'll tell you what you value," I don't know. I like the Vice President personally a lot. I often don't know exactly why he said what he said, but this comment really does raise a question about why we're not willing to talk about the things we want to achieve as a government. Nearly 4 years have passed since we had any kind of blueprint. And I'm told that when we talk about a budget in Washington, apparently there were no political consequences because the majority was rewarded with the majority again, even though if there was one comment that was made over and over again in that campaign is it's been 3 years since there was a budget. Now we're saying it's been 4 years since there's been a budget, and we've seen the government just lurch from crisis to crisis, and frankly, most of these crises have been created by the people who then say they're trying to deal with them. I couldn't imagine in November and December why we'd want to start a new year with the things before us that were before us then. This could have been handled at that time as easily as it could be handled now, but part of it is the failure to plan. Since the Senate, controlled for some time now by Democrats, passed a budget in April of 2009, lots of things have happened. 4 years ago, nobody in America had an iPad yet because iPads hadn't been invented yet. Nobody had an iPad. Nobody in America now doesn't know somebody who has an iPad if they don't have one themselves. Instagram, which our conference just added to one of our tools this week, but it didn't even exist 4 years ago. The federal debt 4 years ago was less than $12 trillion. Now it's $16.6 trillion. LeBron James was still a Cleveland Cavalier the last time the Senate passed a budget. Obamacare, and the president in the presidential campaign said he now liked that term. I think he may not like it as well as he does now when people find out more about it, but it wasn't even the law yet. It wasn't the law. The Oprah show was still on the air. NASA had not announced yet that we were done with the space shuttle missions. Prince William and Kate Middleton weren't engaged, and Brent Favre still played for the NFL. Lots of things have happened in the last 4 years, but the one thing that hasn't happened is the Senate hasn't passed a budget. Republicans in the House have drawn up and voted for budgets, and we figured out ways occasionally to have a budget vote, but the president's vote would get no votes. There was no Senate majority budget vote to vote on, and I look forward to seeing that budget on the floor. You know, I was glad to vote just a few weeks ago on the bill that said if we don't have a budget, we don't get paid. Because if we don't have a budget, we don't have the fundamental tool it takes to have the other debates on the appropriation bills. People deserve a Senate that has a budget, that's willing to put it out there, that then is willing to have the debates on appropriation bills we need to have. It's been 15 months since we had an appropriation bill on the Senate floor. So we just have failed to do the work, and that leads us from one needless crisis to another.